Zoom webinar. This is a Zoom webinar. Attendees are muted and cameras are turned on. All right, there you go. Just holding my alarm to make sure that I'm here on time. Well, let's get started again. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. This session is going to run from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time and include 2 live presentations, followed by 2 pre-recorded lightning talks with the last 15 minutes for an open Q&A. We will save all questions until the end of the session, but please feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentations. When asking your question, please indicate the presenters you would like to direct your question to. And after the session, please feel free to drop questions and continue the conversations in the session chat in Feedloop. Please remember, is this any better with my audio? Okay, I see some nods and I'll try to speak more loudly. So apologies about that. I was just welcoming everyone to the webinar and sharing the logistics. Just a reminder with the code of conduct, this is in effect in duration of the summit. Research Data Access and Preservation Summit organizers are committed to providing an environment where all attendees can participate fully in the program and activities without fear of harassment or discriminatory behavior of any kind. There is a code of conduct helper available during the session. Emily Kilser is identified as a COC helper, both in Feedloop and here on Zoom. And you may direct messages to Emily if you need assistance. They can provide you with code of conduct email address or the link to the incident report form as needed. So now I'll move on to introducing our presenters. So first, we are going to be hearing from Jennifer Moore from Washington University in St. Louis and Samantha Harmon from the James Madison University for the presentation titled Navigating AI's Ethical Complexities, Building Resilience with a Library-Centered Literacy Framework. So I'll pass it on to them and introduce the other presenters.
Should have started with unmuting myself. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, hi, everyone. I want to thank you for being here. As previously stated, my name is Samantha Harmon, and I am the Data Services Librarian at James Madison University. I'm excited to be presenting with Jennifer Moore, who is the Head of Data Services at Washington University in St. Louis. Our talk, Navigating AI's Ethical Complexities, is going to explore the role of libraries in fostering AI literacy. As we all know, AI is rapidly transforming research and education, and these technologies evolve. As they evolve, ethical literacy is essential to ensure responsible and informed use. This project did stem from the Data Services Continuing Professional Education, DSCPE, I know that's a mouthful, where I reviewed WashU's Data Savvy course, and that's what provided both the program and the course a foundation for thinking about how to approach developing an online AI literacy module. Our goal with this is to help libraries integrate ethical AI literacy into research and to support instruction. And so as AI continues to evolve, so must our approaches to teaching and supporting ethical literacy. So I look forward to sharing our insights from the project and exploring how we can strengthen these efforts together. Come on, slides. Perfect. So AI is no longer a futuristic concept. That'll kind of be what's interwoven into this entire presentation. It's already transforming how we research, teach, manage data. And the challenge for libraries is ensuring that as AI evolves, we stay ahead of it, providing communities with the tools they need to understand and ethically navigate these technologies. So why does AI matter for libraries? The answer is simple. Libraries are trusted institutions. We're in a unique position to guide students, faculty, and staff through the complexities of AI, ensuring responsible use while helping everyone build the critical skills they need to thrive in an AI-driven world. So you might be wondering, how do we even begin to think about the future of AI? To prepare for AI's future, we turned to the ARL CNI AI scenarios. You can see this diagram on the slides, and this maps out 4 potential futures. Scenario 1 focuses on a future where AI seamlessly integrates into humans' life, enhancing research, collaboration, and communication. In scenario 2, this future is more consumer focused with limited impact on academia. Scenario 3 focuses on overzealous AI adoption and how that leads to bias, misinformation, and unregulated use. And scenario 4 is on autonomous AI. So in this future, AI evolves to work alongside humans in research and learning. So you might be wondering, why are we focusing on these scenarios? From the research we've done, they have helped us understand the most critical uncertainties we need to address in the coming years. They're not just about choosing one particular path, but about making sure we're ready for whatever comes our way. Our project aims to position libraries as guides in the process, offering structured and ethical frameworks for AI literacy. So as we build this course, we're taking a comprehensive approach to ensure that it's not only educational, but also adaptable to a variety of audiences across multiple institutions. So these slides, if you look in the left 1 through 5, is a quick look at what our course will cover and where we are in the developmental process. So the course is designed as 5 module self-paced units. Each module will focus on one of the key areas essential to AI literacy. So if we break it down, module 1 focuses on the foundations of AI. So here will be core concepts and functions. Module 2 will focus on AI and research, so how AI is transforming scholarly work. Module 3 is ethical risks and responsibilities, so addressing bias, transparency, and accountability. Module 4 focuses on responsible AI use, so the best practices for ethical AI and research. And our last module focuses on AI in the teaching landscape, so helping educators integrate AI into their curricula. So as we develop the course, we're also working on some important tasks to make sure we're providing the most valuable content. So this means that we're cross-validating the course against other trainings, courses, and lectures to fill gaps rather than reinventing the wheel or duplicating existing resources. We thought about, what do students need to know at the core? The challenge here for us is to balance foundational knowledge with practical applications, focusing on the most essential information. But we also need to make sure that we don't overwhelm people, especially if they're new to AI. So we're balancing content overload with the right depth of information. We're collaborating with STEM faculty to ensure the course is scientifically accurate, particularly around technical topics like AI and machine learning. To make the course as engaging as possible, we've developed learning goals for each module and are considering ways to reinforce key concepts through hands-on activities. We also plan to create an ethical AI toolkit, hoping that a resource like this can offer guidelines and scenarios where students can see ethical principles in action. So realistically, this course isn't just about understanding AI. It's about developing the skills to use it responsibly and ethically in research and beyond. We are taking the time to develop the course carefully with input from experts and a focus on practical applications to ensure it's meaningful, comprehensive, and scalable. And to support this project, we created an annotated bibliography in Zotero. This compiled key literature on AI ethics, research integrity, and critical AI studies. This was a crucial part as part of my DSCPE capstone project. So I've been reviewing materials to ensure that we incorporate diverse perspectives and stay aligned with the evolving AI landscape. Some of these are on the slide. So you have artificial intelligence and its contents, the ARL CNI AI scenarios, guidance for generative AI education and research, and the ethics of AI in education. So this bibliography is a living resource, continuously updated to reflect the evolving AI landscape. Our goal is to provide librarians with adaptable materials to support their own AI literacy efforts. We're always looking for additional scholarship to strengthen this resource. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Jennifer.
All right, thanks, Samantha. Before I go into the framework itself, this is the sort of a monster Venn to represent the course framework and how it intersects with other parts of the course. I want to just focus a little on the importance of collaboration in building something like this. And Samantha really already started that conversation with her introduction. I want to note, again, this was built on the Data Savvy program, which we created at WashU. And that was built on research that we did with Ithaca S&R, a bunch of other institutions, and subject librarians around in our own institution. And what we learned from from that research, and it was in teaching with data in the social sciences, what we learned is that instructors feel that many students who are taking data intensive courses lack foundational knowledge in data. So we developed Data Savvy, which was self-paced, micro-credentialed online in Canvas course that they could make use of if to help flesh out or fill the gap that was missing for their students. And we also, the team who built it is my data services team, using resources and information from experts, information from faculty, and a culmination of their own experience. And then we had many, many people reviewing it. I want to just also say a little, just plug a little bit here, the Data Curation Network, which is always the wind beneath our wings when it comes to how we develop our curricula and how, and many of the content topics that we work on. It's collaboration and community engagement. Information is coming from a lot of different places. And there are many more even than what I'm saying right now. But just, again, focusing on collaboration as a key part of resiliency and building resources like this. So what was missing from Data Savvy? We do have some short sections in one of the Data Savvy courses that focus on machine learning and AI. However, we'd been working over the last year or so with our digital innovation and intelligence accelerator, which is leading digital transformation at WashU. And they, with them, were doing things like building chat bots, and they really, thankfully, see the libraries as the key place to sort of provide instruction around AI and get people literate around AI. So it was clear to me that we needed to build out a full course. And that is when my engagement with the Data Services Continuing and Professional Education program began, and I wrote a proposal to have a mentor that was interested in outlining the AI course with us and some other related activities. And that is when we met Samantha, which was amazing because Samantha took conversations that we were having with constituents on campus, conversations between us, the readings that we're looking at, and her own expertise, and really thoughtfully put together this framework. And as you can see, it centers literacy, it centers the library, and it has a lot of overlapping and related topics that make it it a more holistic view of what it means to develop an ethical approach to AI and a literacy program around that. And you can go forward.
1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute. Oh my gosh. Sorry. I timed myself and I was so fast. Okay. So we're also, one of the other deficiencies with the Data Savvy program is that it was in Canvas. And so that means it's restricted to people who have access to our Canvas instance. So I had to download a PDF and send it to Samantha, which was not ideal for the content. So we really hope to develop an OER, open educational resource, so that it can be flexible, accessible, and extensible going forward. In development, not ready today. And can you go forward, please? Just about how we did this, we have not met in real life yet, hopefully at ACRL very soon. So we relied on regular meetings, though as much as we could, meeting with other people at our campus. We were a good match in terms of our collaborative spirit and being able to trust, which means both being able to step up and take ownership of something, but also step back and give space to someone else to do it. Good communication, being open and flexible, and having a healthy dose of empathy. One slide forward, please.
You could wrap up right after this one. That would be great.
Yeah, this is it. This is it. So you've heard it's all over. There's widespread adoption of AI, especially generative AI. And we've heard a little bit of resistance to this. As Samantha already said, this is not really a question right now. It's happening, and we have to take the reins right now. So this scale of resistance from yawn to crippling fear is something that we have to overcome. And we have to take the mission that libraries have always had of making information accessible and available, regardless of its shape, and develop and take the responsibility to shepherd ethical and critical thinking as we leverage the power of AI.
Thank you very much to your presenters. That was fantastic. We are now going to hear from our second presenters, David Merton-Jones and Janine Finn from the Claremont College's Library. The presentation is titled "The Chats Out of the Bag." Thank you.
What a great dovetail. Thank you for that. Welcome to the Chats Out of the Bag, assessing the use of LLMs in digital scholarship. My name is David Merton-Jones. I'm the Data Services Specialist at the Claremont College's Library. I'm here today with my colleague, Dr. Janine Finn, Head of Digital Scholarship and Data Services. Next slide, please. Today, we're coming to you with more questions than answers. Here's a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be starting with student use of large language models, our role as library staff and data services, considerations for and difficulties posed by our environment for instruction, an overview of what large language models are, why they've been called stochastic parrots. We're also going to be talking about different kinds of outputs that LLMs can generate, both long and short, how students are using them as research tools, alternatives that students can use instead of LLMs, transferability of skills such as prompt engineering versus traditional search, and lastly, we'll be talking a bit about academic data preservation and reproducibility, as well as discussing what our responsibilities are to that end. All right, with that, Janine, please take it away.
Unmute. Thank you so much, David. And thank you, Samantha and Jennifer. That was like really a nice dovetail. I appreciate that. Jennifer, we might be some of that resistance you're talking about. So what brings us to this topic today? Why are we here talking about this? We don't have a framework. We don't have a learning model. It's just sort of like fresh from the trenches from this past year for David and I. David and I had found in supporting students using different kind of coding environments that they were increasingly keeping a ChatGPT window open as sort of an always ready Q&A answer tool for getting code snippets written. This was evident when they were using statistical packages like Stata or SPSS, but also when writing more fully featured code in R and Python environments. These tools aren't new. ChatGPT and AI have been around at least a couple of years, and we'd seen the conversations among our colleagues and how to sort of manage those in learning environments, particularly for summarization and generative AI for writing essays. But the really rapid adoption of LLMs and writing code for data-intensive applications really struck us over this past year. And several of our campuses have added Copilot to their standard undergrad software packages. So the undergrads are learning to write code with Copilot just right out of the gate. So we have organized this question today, this talk today around 2 questions. Question 1, how do we constructively engage with this practice in ways that support student learning and affirm the instructor goals for the course? And question number 2, are there particular concerns that we have as library staff who are also data curators, data workers, and honestly might be operating with some really limited resources? Just to be kind of clear about the environment we're working in, I don't think it's terribly different from what most of you all are working in the room. Most of our student-facing work comes in the form of library workshops and classes, helping students with data cleaning, statistical methods, and some best practices for data management and data science. This kind of work is exciting and rewarding, and it's fun, but some of the limitations include the fact that it is very reactive. We are often have to do something in a very short turnaround time, depending on what the instructor request is. And those, it's often a one shot. We have a one chance to sort of work on this topic. We often don't have the full context of how the student came to sort of be answering these research questions and working with these tools. We don't really know what their prior experience is. Often we need to, in the course of a workshop, provide a very quick fix for what may have been some long simmering sources of confusion. We are also supporting a wide range of instructors across our colleges. We don't always know the instructor experience or their attitude towards the use of ChatGPT in their courses unless they've provided us with a syllabus that has some sort of statement about their philosophy towards AI use, and some of them do, but not all of them. So towards that end, in terms of the environment for instruction broadly, what we know about that instruction environment on our campus is, I think, as Jennifer and Samantha also mentioned, we're increasingly seeing programming skills and data skills needed for all kinds of majors that are working with data at any kind of scale. And students are not often terribly interested in learning how to code. They just want a quick fix. They want the path of least resistance to get their data clean and their data analyzed. And not all platforms are created equal or equally useful, in our opinion. Stata is very popular with like our econ departments. Many other departments prefer to get students starting using our studio for statistical analysis. It's not, these environments aren't universal. Also not universal, the support resources. They vary quite a bit across the colleges. Some colleges have resources for one-on-one tutoring, have a statistical consulting center, not all do. And just wanted to bring home, particularly after seeing some of the great presentations from some of our bigger institutions, Claremont is a consortium of mostly small liberal arts colleges. We are not an R1. We don't have many millions of dollars in funded research. We have maybe 20 million in funded research across our 6 campuses. So it's a very different kind of environment that is very teaching heavy. So to get into a little more detail about LLMs, I'm going to pass it back to David.
All right, to understand LLMs, we need to talk about word embeddings. This might be old hat for some of you. It might be way too technical for others. That's okay. This is going to be sort of a broad strokes overview. So to understand what LLMs are, they're based on word embeddings, first and foremost, which are a numerical representation of which words usually appear in similar contexts in regular speech and text. These numerical representations are in the form of vectors, which are sequences of numbers that represent position in multi-dimensional spaces, more than just 2 or 3 dimensions. Words with similar meanings will have similar values in this vector space, and differences between them will often underscore latent semantic relationships. For example, one that's often talked about is king and queen will be roughly the same distance apart from each other as man and woman, representing gender and class differences in sort of a parallelogram within this space. Similarly, pronouns like these, those, this, and that will be related along. This is the sort of thing that would appear before a noun, but changing depending on plurality. Predictive text has come a long way from autocomplete. For a long time, it was only able to predict word by word. But in the mid-2010s, there was a transition to what are called bidirectional recurrent neural networks, which started to become popular. In particular, two variations on these: long short-term memory and gated recurrent units, or LSTM or GRU, came about, which preserve syntactical value between parts in a sentence, including like maintaining subject verb agreements, verb tense, correct pronouns for a given noun, etc. What these did was that rather than looking only at one word, they were able to look backwards and forwards in a sentence. Another advantage of these models over previous models was that they could produce an output of variable length, either much shorter or much longer than the input, meaning that you could summarize or extrapolate upon the theme. Over time, researchers found that these BRNNs could be improved by the addition of what's called the attention mechanism, which is a parallelized way of assigning importance to different values, importance values, like a separate set of vectors to each word in this model. Then in 2017, various scientists, I think there were 8 of them, I don't remember all their names, but they published an article called "Attention is All You Need," which illustrated the capability for this attention mechanism to work out without the underlying BRNN structure. This attention-only transformer model could perform parallel processing on text corpora, leading to the invention of much faster neural networks, such as GPT, which is generative pre-trained transformers. Next slide, please. However, like all neural networks, these transformer models have to be initialized on random weights and biases, and their efficacy is highly dependent on the text corpora on which they're trained. The stochastic processes that allow for them to work so fluidly also give them some degree of inherent instability. Some researchers, such as Emily Bender, have labeled LLMs and transformers as stochastic parrots or text extruding machines. As I prepared speaker notes for this workshop, I made use of a transformer model in the form of Google's speech-to-text algorithm. It couldn't catch every word I spoke into it, and it mislabeled a few terms because it was only generating the most likely output it could based on the voice pass-through algorithm built by Google's training data. So there were words that it didn't catch. Next slide, please. As with bidirectional RNNs, transformer models can be used to generate many outputs from few or few outputs from many. One can think of this as a shower head versus a funnel. This has some implications for reliability in specific applications. So when water sprays from a shower head, it's harder to direct into one bin than water poured from a funnel. In the case of transformers, when they're used to summarize, it's easier to catch errors if you're familiar with the input being summarized than it is when the model is used to extrapolate from a shorter input into a longer body of text. It's not a question of overall accuracy, but a question of how difficult it is to catch individual errors. Next slide, please. So students are using LLMs as research tools. How are they using them? Well, we're not talking about using to write essays. That's clearly a misuse of these and an academic honesty issue. What we're talking about today are sort of sideline issues. So one way students are using them is to supplant the role of a traditional tutor, especially when tutors aren't available. So if it's 3 in the morning and you're working on a paper that's due the next day, you can open up ChatGPT and ask it a question, and it will provide some kind of recommendation. As Janine mentioned, we're seeing a lot of students use ChatGPT as their default reference for writing code for assignments. Second, students are using it to summarize, much in the same way that students in previous eras would have used Spark Notes or Cliff Notes when they don't feel like doing the reading. Third, students are using it built-in LLM assistance in coding platforms such as Copilot and GitHub and the generative AI feature in Google Colab. These features can be handy for experienced coders, but they take away the troubleshooting process that is essential for novice coders to learn good programming heuristics. Next slide, please. So if students are habituated to using LLMs, how can we best show them alternatives? Do students have enough information literacy to understand how to evaluate them as research tools? One partial solution may be to place LLMs in a lineup alongside other resources and compare their features so students will be able to better evaluate them. Next slide, please. This brings up another question. How transferable are skills between working with prompt engineering with an LLM versus traditional search on the web and in databases? In prompt engineering, you have to refine your input to change the behavior of LLM, whereas in traditional search, you have to refine your search terms to get more specific results. Are these skills similar enough to provide an easy bridge for students to get better at traditional searches? All right, back to you, Janine. That was kind of a lot, sorry.
Sorry, losing my buttons. And I'm clicking all over the place. Sorry. Let me go back. So thank you. That was quite a bit about LLMs, but thank you. I feel better informed. So that kind of brings us back to our questions as practitioners and the two foundational questions of our presentation that we wanted to ask, which is how do we support these processes and this use of these tools and techniques while supporting the instructor goals, but also sort of addressing our concerns as data curators, data stewards, and people who are, I think, invested in sort of the future of how people work with data going forward. And so the question, we had those two questions and we came up with a third. Are LLMs fair? So how findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable are data cleaning workflows and frankly, all kinds of other workflows and code derived from LLMs? A related question, how secure are the prompts and data uploaded to cloud-based AI services? I know some organizations have contractual agreements with their providers. What about students and some of our researchers who are just using cloud-based services to find coding solutions? Also questions of data preservation. Like ChatGPT and AI, we know they're not fair. We know they're not necessarily invested in an open source philosophy or a fair ecosystem, but in using these tools, are we help creating data practices around data stewardship and data preservation that future users will be able to work from? And are we doing a service or a disservice by using these kinds of tools and teaching our students how to use them? So last slide, and I kind of hate to land on responsibilities again, because there's been a lot of sort of feeling of responsibility among the practitioners in this space, I think, today. But what are our responsibilities to our students as learners who are learning how to work with code as future knowledge workers? And what are our responsibilities to our communities of data users that go beyond the students on our campuses? And how do we address them with what are some limited resources and sometimes a limited window into what's happening with our collaborators across the colleges? Which is, again, a lot more questions than we have answers for, but I can't think of a better group to start asking these questions with. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, both of our presenters. That was wonderful. We are now on to our pre-recorded lightning talks. The first one is by Shannon Sheridan from the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory for the talk Documenting AI Prompts. After that, we will hear from Lisa Chin at the University of Chicago and Matthew Murray at the University of Colorado Boulder for the talk Data Licensing, Forging Resiliency Through Open Data Sets. We will now watch the recording.
Here at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, in a way that I'm sure is similar to many of you, AI has really made an impact on our research. We have an internal AI incubator, funding calls often include requests for an AI component, and we're even working towards producing more AI-ready data, as soon as we figure out exactly what we mean by that, of course. With all this activity, our researchers are grappling with how to responsibly incorporate AI into their workflows. And in the library, we are finding ways to engage with researchers over AI, looking for places to leverage our expertise and resources. Now, in my work as a data librarian, one of my areas of focus is proper documentation of research data, especially when that data is geared towards being published. And as we were exploring how the library could support our researchers with AI, I realized there was a documentation gap. While recommendations exist on how to properly credit or cite AI usage in research and writing, and best practices for prompt engineering are plentiful, there are no best practices for properly tracking and documenting AI prompts used during research. While the algorithms of AI may be a black box, documenting and sharing the prompts, context, and environment can allow others more clarity around how AI was used during a project. With many funding organizations requiring data sharing for validation of results, I believe AI input prompts are a new form of data that should be documented and shared when AI is used as part of research methodologies. Documenting enhances reproducibility, allows for improvement in iteration, provides clarity, facilitates collaboration, and can help address bias and other ethical issues. This all started when I co-taught a short class with another librarian that focused on citing AI. As I mentioned, there's lots of good material already out there for citation best practices. But as we were discussing our presentation, I realized that adding a few slides on best practices for documenting prompts could also be helpful. Citing sources, citing your work, that sort of mentality. I went searching, because surely there was information out there on this. but all I found were best practices on creating prompts. So I decided to create guidance myself. It began as just 2 slides in that Citing AI class, one outlining the benefits of documenting and what formats you could store it in, and another on what you should be documenting. I tried to think about what sort of information might be useful to a reuser and came up with prompt description, prompt text string, context, model information, parameters and settings, response handling, limitations, and resources for reproducibility. The presentation went well, but I wanted to turn those 2 slides into something more concrete than just something researchers might see if they attended the class or watched the recording. We are part of a profession that does a great job at creating templates for others to use, from READMEs to file naming conventions. So I decided to create my own template. Credit where it's due, I chose to model it on Kristen Briney's file naming convention worksheet. It seemed like a good model for explaining what each item was, providing examples, and allowing space for people to easily use the page for documentation if they so chose. And this was the result. I've made versions both with and without examples, and they are available on OSF. At PNNL, I've started socializing these, providing access to them whenever we talk about AI. This is all very recent, so I can't speak too much about uptake yet, but I want to emphasize that these are just the first version of a resource that I hope will grow and develop as we learn more about how researchers are using AI as part of their workflow and what really is the best way to document that. So with that being said, if anyone ends up using these templates and has feedback or suggestions, please don't hesitate to get in touch.
Welcome to Data Licensing, Forging Resiliency through Open Data Sets.
So the current landscape for research data is that there's a lot of openly available data sets, which is great, but there's also a lot of research data sets that are behind paywalls. So libraries end up paying a lot of money to license these data sets for researchers. This is not always a great solution, obviously, and there are lots of potential issues in this area. One of those is limited access. So researchers might have to use a VPN to access the data set. They might have to create an account to log in. They might only be able to use the data set within the physical library building itself. They are also often not able to download the data sets, or if they can download them, they're very limited in what they can download. One example I found was that you were limited to 10 downloads a day, which sounds okay until you discover that one download was one row from an Excel file. That's not going to be very useful for a lot of researchers. Another limit is with restricted use. So often these data sets, the license terms say that they're for educational use only, so they can be used for instructional, education, and research needs, but researchers may not use them for commercial purposes, which is very restrictive for researchers that are hoping to monetize aspects of their research. There's also limitations with regards to being able to republish your data set, which is often a challenge for researchers that are looking to or required to republish their data set as the result of grant requirements. Also, there's access limitations. So where is the data set located? Is it hosted externally, or does the library need to host it somewhere on their own systems? What information is required from the researchers that are accessing this if they're required to create an account on the data set system? And then what are the vendors doing with that registration data afterwards? We're also getting increasing requests from researchers to provide API access to data sets. And it becomes a question of when do we negotiate that access? Once we've been asked, or when we're negotiating the access to the data set in general? Sometimes one of the questions people ask is, are these data sets even copyrightable? And the answer is sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. But once a library agrees in a license agreement, we're limited by what that contract says. And so fair use no longer applies in all those cases. You can find out more about this in the Data Curation Network's primer for applying and interpreting licenses for research data and code, which Lisa and I are two of the co-authors for.
Okay, great. I wanted to give an example of a policy that you might find useful in your library environment. This is UChicago's data collection development policy that we have that we use to analyze whether we should purchase a data set or not. So when a suitable data set is not available through our collection or through an open access source, the librarian will consider purchasing data that meets the following criteria. We really prioritize purchases with broad appeal that could be applied in instructional and research settings. So to be used in the teaching aspect and research aspect of your work. And then we also only purchase data that is accessible to all UChicago students, staff, and faculty. So we're really focusing on that broad use rather than limiting to a department or a division. And so we also really focus on things like the format and access, thinking about providing this data sets in non-proprietary file formats, and then preference given to vendors who comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act by providing data that's compliant with the latest version of Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And then we also have this unique carve out in our licensing where we work to license data sets that allow for text and data mining and to allow users to share the results of text and data mining in their scholarly work. So because of this, we have some additional terms that we really like to put in our licensing agreements, including scholarly sharing, creation of derivative works, and the ability of the library to maintain a backup copy of the data. And then where is UChicago headed with data licensing in the future? Well, firstly, we're resistant to collecting licensed data given the current data broker landscape. If you have not read it, data cartels, the companies that control and monopolize our information, is an impressive read of the data broker landscape in the US. So how do we get around sort of this data broker landscape? So various options do exist within the current framework, including finding the data that is often behind paywalls can be found in open source data portals. So that's one place to look. Data repositories, of course, are another really useful component of data infrastructure. Data in institutional repositories, whether it's your own institutional repository or looking beyond your own institutional repository, is another place to look. And then also thinking about open APIs, FTPs, or data portals, and including language about access in the licensing agreement. So the next steps for us are to think about restricted data and restricted data licenses that are not covered in our current policies, which is more work to come on this area. Thank you.
Thank you to all our speakers. We now have time for questions. I see that there were a couple that were already answered by our speakers, so I'll just read them out if anyone would like to refer to them. Thank you, this was great, and thank you for the participants for joining this session. So we do have another 5 minutes technically for this, so we will have another break for 15, so that makes it a 20-minute break before our next session. So please note that the next set of presentation sessions, which will be session 5, are concurrent sessions. If you would like to attend session 5B, which is Open Science, Allied Carpentries, you can stay in the same Zoom webinar during the break. If you would like to switch to session 5A, which is Innovative and Engaging Data Literacy, there is a new Zoom link, which you can find in the Feed Loop Sessions tab. So thank you again to our presenters and our attendees. Have a great rest of your day.